My name is Mara Ellis, and I was 12 years old when my mother decided I was the daughter who needed to disappear. She did not say it like that to other people. To neighbors, teachers, and relatives, she made it sound gentle. She said I needed a quieter place. She said I needed more structure. She said I was falling behind and needed help that she could not give me at home. But I remember the real words. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my report card beside my untouched dinner. I remember my twin sister Sloane sitting across from me with perfect grades, perfect posture, and the kind of silence that made me feel even smaller. My mother, Vivian, looked at me like I was a problem she had grown tired of solving. Then she said, "Some children are born to rise. Some children need to stop holding everyone else back." I was not failing because I did not care. I was failing because every test felt like a trial. Every grade felt like a verdict. Every comparison reminded me that love in my house came with conditions. Sloane was everything my mother admired. Sharp, confident, top of every class. The child teachers remembered for all the right reasons. And I was the other twin, the one who drew in the margins, the one who took too long to answer, the one who understood stories better than equations, the one who could turn a blank page into something beautiful, but still came home feeling worthless because beauty did not count in a house that worshipped achievement. That night, after my mother told me I was holding everyone back, I walked out into the cold without a coat. I was not trying to run away forever. I was 12. I just needed the air to stop hurting. By morning, they found me. For one foolish second, I thought fear would make my mother hold me tighter. Instead, she packed my bag. I cried. I begged. I promised I would study harder. I promised I would speak less, need less, be better, be easier to love. My mother did not cry. She only said, "I have another daughter with a future to protect." That was the sentence that ended my childhood. My father, Paul, drove me from Boston to a small Montana town where my Aunt June lived. He held the steering wheel with both hands and barely spoke. My mother sat in the passenger seat answering emails like this was an errand. Sloane was not allowed to come. That hurt more than I expected. I kept looking at the empty space beside me, thinking my twin should have been there. We had shared a room, birthdays, secrets, and faces. But now she was staying, and I was being sent away. When we reached Aunt June's house, she was waiting on the porch. It was a small blue house with chipped paint, wind chimes, and flower pots that looked like they had survived storms and stayed anyway. Aunt June hugged me before I said a word. That hug almost broke me. My mother handed her a folder with my school records, medical forms, and a check. It felt like I was being transferred, not loved. "She needs discipline," my mother said. "Structure, fewer distractions." Aunt June looked at my red eyes, then at the sketchbook I was holding against my chest. Then she said, "Maybe what she needs is one person who asks what she is good at before deciding what is wrong with her." My mother did not like that. She kissed my forehead without warmth, told me to behave, and left. For the first 2 weeks, I barely spoke. I slept with my suitcase beside the bed because unpacking felt like accepting that I had been thrown away. Aunt June never forced me. She made pancakes for dinner when I refused breakfast. She left art supplies on the kitchen table without making a speech. She drove me to school without warning me not to embarrass her. The first time I brought home a C on a math quiz, I waited for anger. Aunt June looked at the paper and asked, "Did you understand more this week than last week?" I whispered, "Yes." She smiled and said, "Then we keep going." That sentence changed something in me. At my old school, I had been the disappointing twin. In Montana, I was just Mara. My grades did not become perfect overnight, but my hands stopped shaking before tests. I joined art club. I painted sets for the school play. I designed posters for the library book sale. I made adoption flyers for the animal shelter. For the first time, adults praised me for something real. Not because I beat Sloane. Not because I matched someone else's idea of success. Because I created something useful and beautiful. Sloane messaged me sometimes. At first, she said she missed me. She said the house felt strange without me. She said Mom promised it was temporary. But temporary became months. Months became years. My mother rarely called unless Aunt June pushed her. My father sent money and stiff birthday cards. Sloan kept winning awards, debate medals, honor society pins, college brochures. I was proud of her. I really was. But every photo reminded me that she had stayed in the spotlight while I had been moved out of the frame. When I was 15, I sold my first drawing at a farmer's market. It was a small watercolor of the town library after snowfall. An older woman bought it for $20 because she said it looked like a place where lonely kids could feel safe. I carried that $20 bill home like it was a trophy. Aunt June did not laugh. She put it in a cheap frame and placed a note underneath. Mara's first sale. Proof that talent counts too. That night, I waited for the old sadness to come. The ache of wishing my mother had seen it. But instead, I felt something warmer. I felt seen by the person who was actually there. By the time I graduated high school, I had stopped waiting for my mother to change her mind. Aunt June helped me apply to a state university in Montana with a visual communication program. When the acceptance email came in, she screamed so loudly the neighbor thought something was wrong. My mother sent one text. Interesting choice. I hope it becomes practical. That was the closest thing I got to congratulations. Sloan called me that night from Boston. She had already been accepted into an elite pre-law program. She sounded happy for me, but careful. Like praising me too much would make her disloyal to our mother. Art school sounds fun, she said. Mom just worries about stability. I almost told her that being loved only when you are impressive is not stability. But I stayed quiet. College was hard, but it was mine. I worked at the campus print shop. I designed menus, event posters, flyers, and book covers for small local businesses. I spent nights learning software from free videos because I could not afford extra classes. But every hard thing felt different because nobody was standing over me calling my dreams embarrassing. During my second year, I volunteered at a fundraiser for a wildlife rescue outside town. They needed painted signs. I needed portfolio work. That was where I met Caleb Wolf. He was carrying a crate of injured birds when he stopped in front of the donation board I had painted. On it was a fox with one bent ear. Caleb smiled and said, "That fox looks like it survived a lot and still knows something we don't." It was the strangest compliment I had ever received. And somehow, it was the truest. Caleb was quiet, steady, and kind in a way that did not ask for applause. His family ran the rescue ranch. Around town, people called them the Wolves, partly because of their last name and partly because they moved like a pack. His mother brought pho, odd when someone was in trouble. His brothers showed up with tools before anyone asked. His grandmother remembered every birthday. They were warm, but not weak. Caleb once told me, "In my family, when someone tries to scare us, we don't panic. We breathe, we think, and we protect the pack." I did not know then how much those words would matter. Caleb and I became friends first. He sat with me during late shifts at the print shop, bringing coffee and pretending he needed design advice for rescue flyers. I helped his family create a logo, then a website, then a children's pamphlet about local wildlife safety. Those projects led to more work. A bookstore hired me, then a literacy nonprofit, then a small publisher looking for an illustrator. By 22, I opened Mara Wolf Studio, even before Wolf became my legal name. Caleb proposed under the old cottonwood tree behind the rescue barn, with his whole family hiding badly behind hay bales. I married him in a simple outdoor ceremony. Aunt June walked me down the aisle. My father sent a card and money. My mother did not come. Sloan came, but she spent half the reception answering calls from Mom. Later, she told me, "Mom said she just wasn't ready." I looked at her and said, "She had 10 years." Sloan looked away. Last year, Caleb and I had our daughter, Lily. Holding her for the first time changed me. She was tiny, helpless, perfect. And I could not imagine looking at any child and deciding she was too inconvenient to love. Aunt June came with soup, diapers, and advice I did not ask for but secretly needed. The Wolf family passed Lily from arm to arm and treated her like the newest member of the pack. My studio kept growing. Children's books, library campaigns, educational posters, branding for small businesses. I built a life filled with work I loved and people who stayed. Then one evening, while I was rocking Lily to sleep, Sloan messaged me. Mom wants to reconnect. She says enough time has passed. I stared at those words for a long time. Enough time had passed for what? For her guilt to fade? For my memories to become easier to deny? For her to return without saying the one sentence I had waited years to hear? The next morning, my mother messaged me herself. It sounded exactly like her. Clean, controlled, empty where the heart should have been. She wrote that she and my father would be in Montana soon for a professional conference. She thought it would be healthy for all of us to reconnect. She called it a family misunderstanding. She said life was short. She did not say sorry. She did not ask what it felt like to be 12 years old with a packed suitcase. She did not ask about the birthdays, graduations, wedding, or baby she had missed. At the end, she wrote, Sloan tells me there is a child now. A child. Not my daughter, not her granddaughter, just a child. I should have ignored the message. But healing is not always clean. Sometimes you can love your life and still want the people who broke your heart to stand inside it and see that they did not destroy you. So I invited them to dinner. I invited Sloan too. Then I told Caleb and Aunt June everything. Aunt June asked, "Do you want me there as your aunt or as your witness?" I said both. Caleb told his family, and the wolves did what wolves do. They did not create drama. They created structure. His mother planned dinner. His grandmother baked bread. His brothers offered to take Lily if things became too tense. Caleb asked if I wanted the family photo albums out or put away. I put them out, not to brag, not to punish, because the truth was in those pages. My college graduation, where Aunt June cried. My first studio sign, installed in the rain by Caleb and his brothers. My book launch at the library. Lily wrapped in a yellow blanket made by Caleb's grandmother. 10 years of life my mother had missed because she'd decided that I was not worth raising. Before they arrived, I stood in the kitchen with my hands pressed against the counter, trying to breathe. Caleb came behind me but did not touch me until I leaned back first. That was one of the things I loved most about him. He never assumed he had the right to handle my pain. He waited to be invited. "You do not have to prove you survived," he said softly. I looked around the home we had built, at the drawings on the walls, at Lily's socks near the couch, at Aunt June arranging plates with shaking hands, at the Wolf family moving around me like a shield that did not need to announce itself. "I know," I said, "but tonight they are going to see who stayed." When the doorbell rang, everything went still. Caleb opened the door. My father looked older, smaller somehow. My mother looked almost the same, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, carrying flowers like she was attending a polite dinner. Sloan stood beside her, beautiful and nervous. My mother smiled and said, "Mara, you look well." Not congratulations, not I missed you, not I am sorry, just, "You look well." I stepped aside and let them into the home they had never helped me build. Dinner began politely. Too politely. Every fork sounded too loud. Aunt June hugged my father, but not my mother. My mother noticed. Lily slept in her bassinet near the living room. My mother looked at her from a distance like she was looking at a painting. Sloan went over first, touched Lily's blanket, and whispered, "She's beautiful." I believed she meant it. That almost hurt more. My mother walked around the room studying the photos. She stopped at one of me standing in front of my studio sign. "So this is your work," she said. "Very charming." Charming. That was her word for anything she did not respect, but could not insult in front of people. Caleb's mother smiled and said, "Mara's work helps children understand stories before taught, and they can read every word. That is not charming. That is important." My mother's smile tightened. Then we sat down. For a while, everyone tried. Caleb's father asked about the conference. My father asked Aunt June about the town. Sloan complimented the food too many times. Then my mother placed her napkin in her lap and looked at me. "I hope you understand now that difficult decisions were made for your benefit." The room changed. I asked, "Which difficult decision?" She gave a soft laugh. "Sending you somewhere quieter. You were struggling, Mara. You needed a different environment. Aunt June put her fork down. My father stared at his plate. Sloane whispered, "Mom." But my mother kept going. "You have clearly done well in your own way, and that is good. But at the time, your behavior affected the whole family. We had to think about Sloane's future, too." There it was. The same old math. One child had a future. One child was an obstacle. I felt Caleb's hand under the table, resting near mine. Not grabbing. Just there if I needed it. I took it. Then I stood. "I want to make a toast," I said. My mother blinked. I looked at Aunt June first. "To the woman who took in a 12-year-old girl with a suitcase, a sketchbook, and no idea why she was so easy to leave. You did not fix me, because I was never broken. You gave me room to grow." Aunt June's eyes filled with tears. Then I looked at Caleb. "To my husband, who never asked me to become impressive before deciding I was worthy of love." His jaw tightened, and his thumb moved gently across my hand. Then I looked at the wolves. "To the family who showed up with soup, tools, baby blankets, loyalty, and truth. The pack that taught me what family is supposed to feel like." My mother's face changed. She knew something was coming. I turned back to her and Sloane. "These are my cold-blooded wolves," I said. "Cold-blooded enough to stay calm when someone tries to rewrite history. Smart enough to keep receipts. Loyal enough to never abandon one of their own just because loving them becomes inconvenient." The silence was complete. My mother went pale. Sloane opened her mouth, then closed it. My father looked like he wanted to disappear. Finally, my mother whispered, "How dare you speak to me that way in front of strangers?" Caleb's grandmother, who had been quiet all night, said, "We are not strangers. We are the people who came after you left." That was when my mother's eyes filled with tears. But they were not the tears I had dreamed of as a child. They were angry tears. Humiliated tears. Tears for the image of herself being damaged. Sloane stood quickly. "You planned this," she said. "You invited us here to shame us." I looked at her and felt something inside me finally loosen. "No," I said. "I invited you to meet the people who raised what you threw away." My father flinched. My mother grabbed her purse. At the door, she turned back and said, "You will regret making us look like monsters." I answered, "I did not make you look like anything. I only stopped hiding what you did." They left before dessert. No one celebrated. Real revenge does not always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like a room full of people breathing again after holding the truth for too long. 2 days later, my mother posted her version online. She said she tried to reconnect with her estranged daughter and was attacked. She called my childhood a misunderstanding. She said adult children should not weaponize the past. Then she tagged my clients, the literacy nonprofit, my publisher, bookstore owners, the library director. People connected to my work. That was when I panicked. I had built my studio carefully. My reputation was personal. A family scandal could cost me everything. Caleb found me shaking in the laundry room. He read the post once. Then he said, "Do not answer yet. We save everything first." That was when the wolves became exactly what I had called them. Calm, organized, protective. Caleb took screenshots. His brother built a timeline. His mother gathered photos from graduations, birthdays, and events my mother had missed. Aunt June wrote down dates and facts. Nobody screamed. Nobody threatened. Nobody behaved the way my mother wanted. They became steady and impossible to push around. I wanted to write a furious response. Caleb read my draft and said, "It is true, but it sounds like pain. Give them truth that sounds like evidence." So I wrote again. This time, I kept it simple. I said my mother had a right to her feelings, but not to damage my professional relationships with a misleading story. I stated that I was sent away at 12 after years of comparison. I stated that my mother did not maintain a relationship with me, did not attend my graduation, wedding, or my daughter's birth, and had contacted me recently without an apology. I stated that the dinner was painful, but no one threatened her. I ended by asking people not to harass anyone. Aunt June commented beneath it. She did not insult my mother. She simply confirmed that she raised me from age 12 because my parents chose not to. Then Caleb's mother commented. Then the library director. Then the author whose book I illustrated. People started asking my mother why she had tagged my clients in a private family matter. By evening, the post had turned against her. The nonprofit not only kept my contract, they asked me to illustrate a campaign about children learning in different ways. My mother deleted her post, but screenshots were already everywhere. Her perfect image cracked. She did not lose everything, but she lost the thing she cared about most, being seen as the unquestioned authority on successful families. That night, she called me. For one foolish second, I hoped she was calling to apologize. I looked at Caleb, at Aunt June, at Lily sleeping safely in his arms. No, I said. You posted the lie. I posted the timeline. Then she said the cruelest thing she could think of. You always were impossible to love. 10 years ago, that sentence would have destroyed me. This time, I looked around at the people who proved her wrong. Maybe for you, I said. Not for them. Then I hung up. A month later, Sloan messaged me. I am starting to understand some things. I did not answer right away. Forgiveness, if it ever comes, will not be rushed just because someone finally feels uncomfortable with her choices. My studio grew. The learning campaign became one of the most meaningful projects of my life. I drew children who solved problems with music, movement, color, memory, kindness, patience, and imagination. I drew children who had been told they were too slow, too quiet, too distracted, too different, and I made sure every one of them looked worthy of love. When the posters went up in libraries, Aunt June cried. Caleb held Lily up so she could touch the picture of a little girl painting stars on a classroom wall. That was when I understood the lesson my life had been teaching me. Education should never make children believe love must be earned through perfection. Real love helps people grow. It does not punish them for growing differently. My mother thought she had thrown away the weaker twin. What she really did was hand me to people who knew how to help me become whole. Blood can explain where you came from, but it does not get to decide where you belong. Family is not always the people who share your name. Sometimes family is the aunt who frames your first $20, the husband who saves evidence before anger, the in-laws who protect you without stealing your voice, the child who teaches you that no one should have to be impressive to deserve love. I did get revenge, but not by becoming cruel like my mother. I got revenge by building a life so full of love, boundaries, work, and truth that her rejection no longer had the power to define me. And if the people who abandoned you ever come back demanding forgiveness without accountability, remember this. You are allowed to open the door. But you are also allowed to stand in front of the family that actually stayed and say, "These are my people, and I was never hard to love."